Well, hello and welcome to Positivity Now, the show that focuses on all things positive. I am your host, Jonas Cain, and today we're on to the next step in the process of thinking, being, and staying positive. And to get into this step, I have a little riddle for you. And the riddle is this: there are 3 frogs sitting on a log. One day, one of the frogs decided that it was time to jump off the log and swim in the water. So the question becomes, how many frogs are left on the log? Well, you would of course think that there's 2 frogs, because if there were 3 and one decided to jump off, then there would be 2 frogs left. However, the frog that decided to swim in the water only decided that it wanted to jump off the log, but never jumped into action. So there's actually 3 frogs still on that log. And this riddle really illustrates the importance of this next step in the process of thinking, being, and staying positive, and that is to take consistent action. So let's jump into it. Today's theme is the next step in the process of thinking, being, and staying positive. This one is all about taking consistent action. With the question of, are you positive? Well, to answer that question, we can ask, are you taking consistent action? And there's a clear distinction here between 2 ideas that are related to this. Taking consistent action, we have what's called wishful thinking, and we have hopeful thinking. And depending on which side of this you are on, you're either taking consistent action or you are not. You might be instead a frog on a log. So the difference here is that wishful thinking desires a better outcome, but doesn't want to invest any effort to influence a better outcome. However, hopeful thinking desires a better future, and instead it takes actions every single day to work towards that better outcome. And when you have hopeful thinking, and this is key, you have three different things. Number 1, if you have hopeful thinking, you know what you want. If you have hopeful thinking, you have a preliminary action plan in place. And number 3, you jump into action every day to work on that plan. Because think about this, if you don't know what you want to have happen, if you don't know what kind of changes that you want to have made, well then of course you're never going to be able to pursue these things. You might have an idea that I don't like what's going on. But in order to have hopeful thinking, all you have to do to move from wishful thinking to hopeful thinking is, well, figure it out. Figure out what that next step is. And the key is to stay fascinated. Because if we slip into frustration, that's more in line with wishful thinking. We're frustrated. We wish things were better, but we either don't know what to do or we don't want to invest any effort. But when we're fascinated, we might not know what's next and what to do, but we're curious and we're asking questions. And that is really the key to hopeful thinking. It's staying inspired. It's being motivated into action. It's asking an important question, which is related to the last episode. If you don't know what to do next, a perfect place to look is to identify your responsibilities. In other words, what can you control? What is within your power at this point? And to show you an example of how this works, there's a certain toy, it's like a game, a puzzle, that when I was a child, I wanted nothing to do with it. And I wanted nothing to do with it because I thought it was beneath my dignity as a human person. And of course, the reason I thought that is because it challenged me. It made me feel, well, to put it bluntly, it made me feel stupid because I couldn't figure out how to use this thing. I'm, of course, talking about the Rubik's Cube. I'm sure perhaps many of you at home have played with these. Perhaps you've been able to solve it. I'll tell you, it took me just about 30 years to figure out how to solve this thing. The first time it took me to solve this, it took me 30 years to solve it. Since then, I've been able to solve it a little faster than 30 years, but the only reason I was able to solve it is because instead of being frustrated by this, I was fascinated by it, and I took consistent action to gain the necessary knowledge and to gain the necessary skills in order to do this. So for all of you at home right now, I invite you to get out your stopwatches and in time and see how long it takes me to solve this cube, because I got to tell you, it's a lot faster than 30 years. And I think if I just make a couple twists here and a couple turns there, it's almost like magic. And that's the key. When we take consistent action, instead of just sitting idly by and watching everything pass us, wishing things were better, but we instead take consistent action every single day, our actions will appear to be like magic to others, but we know the real secret. The real secret is simply figuring out what we need to do to make our lives more better, instead of being wishful thinking, changing into hopeful thinking. So I'm going to leave you with this one thought. Perhaps you don't know what you want to do. Perhaps you just know you want things to be better. Whatever area of life. In a previous episode, we talked about the 4-burner theory. We have our health, we have our family, our career, our friends. Maybe there's a problem going on in one of those burners. Maybe one of those burners is cooling off, or maybe it's getting burnt out and you don't know what to do to fix it. Maybe it's something in your career. Here's some steps that might be able to help you figure out what those next steps are. Reading books, reading articles, watching videos that are related to this area of your life where you're having trouble. Maybe it's talking with a friend, talking with a mentor, maybe it's talking with someone who has an expertise in this area. It might involve many different things. Any way that we can seek to gain some clarity in this area. But I'd like to remind you of one thing. When developing an action plan, by definition, it has to be acted upon. Because if we don't act upon it, well, we're just going to be like the frog on the log. It will never be able to swim into the direction of our destiny. Well, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Positivity Now. If you'd like more information or if you have any questions, please visit our website, positivitymagic.com. Until then, my name is Jonas Cain. Stay positive.